The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council Station pulsed with an ominous red glow as emergency klaxons wailed across the structure. Floating in the void between three star systems, the ancient station had witnessed countless declarations of war, but nothing quite like what was about to unfold. Empress Velthara's holographic form materialized at the center of the chamber, her towering presence casting dancing shadows across the curved walls. Her serpentine body coiled and uncoiled with predatory grace, each scale glinting like polished obsidian. 4 arms extended from her torso, each ending in razor-sharp talons that clicked rhythmically against her ornate throne. Her reptilian head swayed hypnotically as she surveyed the assembled representatives of 47 different species. Behind her translucent form, the viewports revealed the true source of terror. 500 Crimson Empire dreadnoughts hung in perfect formation, each vessel stretching over 2 kilometers in length. Their hulls were painted deep crimson with golden trim, and their weapon arrays glowed with barely contained energy. The smallest of these warships could reduce a planet to ash within hours. Together, they represented the most feared armada in the known galaxy. The alien representatives cowered in their seats. The insectoid Krillians clicked their mandibles nervously, while the gaseous Netherians flickered between different shades of fearful purple. Even the proud warrior race of Vorthak, with their stone-like skin and massive frames, shifted uncomfortably in their reinforced chairs. At the human podium, Ambassador Kim Min-ho stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Unlike the other representatives, he wore a simple black diplomatic uniform without ornate decorations or ceremonial weapons. His dark hair was neatly combed, and his expression remained perfectly calm, despite the overwhelming display of force. Surrounding the station, citizens of the galaxy, Velthara's voice resonated through the chamber like the rumble of distant thunder. For too long, the Outer Rim species have enjoyed the protection of the Crimson Empire without proper compensation. This ends today. Her holographic display shifted, showing various planetary systems on the outer edges of the galaxy. Earth appeared among them, a small blue marble that seemed insignificant compared to the massive industrial worlds of other species. The protection tax will be implemented immediately. Each world will contribute 30% of their gross planetary output to ensure continued security from raiders, pirates, and hostile forces. Her serpentine smile revealed rows of needle-sharp teeth. Those who refuse will discover what happens when the Crimson Empire's protection is withdrawn. Several alien representatives immediately began transmitting acceptance signals. The Aquatic Mollusk Confederation's representative gurgled its agreement through its translation device. The silicon-based rocklings sent affirmative pulses through their crystalline communication arrays, but Kim Min-ho remained silent. Velthara's 4 eyes focused on the human section of the chamber. "And what of the primitive species from Terra? Surely you understand the wisdom of accepting our generous offer." Kim Min-ho stepped forward to the speaking platform. The chamber's amplification system carried his voice clearly to every corner of the vast space. "Your Highness, Earth acknowledges the impressive nature of your proposal." A murmur rippled through the assembled aliens. The humans' tone was respectful, but somehow lacked the fear they expected. "However," Min-ho continued, "such a significant decision requires proper consultation with our planetary leadership. We respectfully request a 48-hour recess to discuss terms with our government." The chamber fell silent. In 3,000 years of Crimson Empire expansion, no species had ever requested time to consider surrender. They either submitted immediately or were conquered within days. Velthara's holographic form flickered with surprise. Her serpentine head tilted as she studied the human ambassador. "You request time? Time to do what, exactly?" "To ensure we provide you with a complete and accurate response, Your Highness. Earth values precision in all diplomatic matters." The Empress's laughter started as a low hiss and built to a sound like shattering crystal. Her massive fleet shifted formation outside, weapons charging with increasing intensity. The energy buildup was so intense that the station's radiation shields began glowing blue-white. "How deliciously amusing," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. The little mammals from the third planet want time to discuss their inevitable submission. She gestured with one clawed hand toward the viewports where her dreadnoughts waited. Very well. You have 48 hours to prepare your surrender documents and calculate your tribute payments. Kim Minho bowed slightly. Earth thanks the Empress for her patience and wisdom. As the holographic projection began to fade, Velthara's final words echoed through the chamber. Enjoy your final hours of independence, humans. When next we meet, you will kneel like all the others. The council session ended with the sound of her cruel laughter, while outside, 500 of the galaxy's most deadly warships maintained their threatening vigil around Earth's moon. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from across the galaxy took their seats. The past 48 hours had felt like an eternity, with many species secretly placing bets on how quickly Earth would capitulate. The Crimson Empire's fleet still maintained its menacing position around Earth's moon, their weapon systems glowing like angry red stars against the black void. Empress Velthara materialized at the center of the chamber, her serpentine form coiled with anticipation. Her forearms gestured dramatically as she addressed the assembly. And so we gather again to witness another species bow before the inevitable tide of progress. Her reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. I trust the humans have prepared their surrender documents. Kim Minho approached his podium with the same calm demeanor he had displayed 2 days earlier. But this time he was not alone. Beside him stood a woman in a crisp military uniform, unlike anything the alien representatives had seen before. Her jacket was deep navy blue with silver trim, and her shoulder boards bore symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. Most curious of all, there were no rank insignia, medals, or decorations that any of the galaxy's military databases could identify. I am Admiral Park Sujin of the Earth Defense Force, she announced, her voice carrying an authority that made several alien representatives lean forward in their seats. Her dark eyes swept across the chamber with the confidence of someone who had seen real combat. I am here to deliver Earth's official response to the Crimson Empire's demands. The insectoid Krillians clicked their mandibles together in anticipation. The gaseous Netherians flickered between shades of curious green and anxious yellow. Even the stone-faced Vorthek warriors showed interest, their massive heads turning toward the human delegation. Kim Minho stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. Empress Velthara, after extensive consultation with our planetary leadership, Earth's response is clear and unanimous. He paused, letting the silence build across the chamber. We respectfully decline your protection tax demands. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers and alien exclamations. Several species had never heard anyone openly defy the Crimson Empire and lived to tell about it. The Aquatic Mollusk Confederation's representative nearly choked on its breathing fluid, while the silicon-based rockling's crystalline forms flickered with disbelief. Velthara's 4 eyes blazed with rage, her serpentine body coiling tighter around her throne. Decline! Her voice rose to a shriek that made the chamber's acoustic dampeners strain. You dare decline the generosity of the Crimson Empire? With a dramatic gesture, she activated the chamber's main display system. The massive holographic screen showed Earth's solar system in perfect detail, with her 500 dreadnoughts arranged in a crushing formation around the small blue planet. Each ship's weapon systems pulsed with deadly energy, creating a light show that could be seen from Mars. Behold the consequences of defiance, she roared. 500 ships of the line, each capable of cracking a planet's crust. Your pathetic world is surrounded, outnumbered, and outgunned by forces beyond your comprehension. The alien representatives cowered as the display zoomed in on individual Crimson warships. The vessels were truly massive, bristling with plasma cannons, photon, torpedoes, and energy weapons that could reduce cities to vapor. Their crimson hulls gleamed menacingly in Earth's sunlight, while their golden trim caught the light like the scales of some ancient dragon. Admiral Park Sujin stepped forward, completely unmoved by the intimidating display. She raised a small communication device to her lips, and her voice carried clearly through the chamber's amplification system. This is Sujin. Begin Operation Dawn. The words seemed innocuous enough, but something in her tone made the chamber fall silent. Even Empress Velthara paused her triumphant display to stare at the human admiral. For a moment, nothing happened. The holographic display continued, showing the Crimson Fleet in all its terrifying glory, surrounding Earth like a pack of predators. Then, something extraordinary began to occur. Across the solar system, objects that had been catalogued as asteroids, derelict satellites, and floating space debris suddenly erupted with brilliant light. Hidden fusion reactors that had been dormant for decades suddenly roared to life, sending cascades of energy through concealed power grids. What the galaxy had dismissed as cosmic junk began to unfold, like mechanical flowers blooming in the void. Stealth plating retracted to reveal sleek hull sections. Weapon ports opened like awakening eyes. Massive engines ignited with blue-white fire that rivaled the output of small stars. The first vessel to fully decloak was a massive battleship hiding in the asteroid belt. Its hull was midnight black with silver accents, and its design was unlike anything in any alien database. Weapon arrays that had been disguised as mining equipment swiveled toward the Crimson Fleet with predatory precision. Then, another ship revealed itself near Jupiter, emerging from what had appeared to be a damaged space station, and another near Saturn, unfolding from inside a hollow asteroid that had been monitored for years. The holographic display automatically updated to show the new contacts, and the numbers began climbing rapidly. 10 ships, 20, 50 each. One larger and more advanced than anything the Crimson Empire had ever encountered. Empress Velthara's confident expression began to crack as she watched her tactical advantage evaporate before her eyes. Her serpentine form uncoiled slightly, and her forearms trembled with a mixture of rage and growing fear. "This is impossible," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the shocked murmurs filling the chamber. "Our intelligence networks would have detected such a build-up. No species can hide an entire fleet." Admiral Park Sujin's smile was cold as winter starlight. "Your intelligence network saw exactly what we wanted them to see, Your Highness. Sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight." The holographic display in the Galactic Council chamber flickered and updated every few seconds as more human vessels revealed themselves across the solar system. What had started as a trickle became a flood of emerging warships, each one shattering the preconceptions of every alien species present. "Impossible," Velthara whispered, her serpentine form beginning to uncoil from her throne. Her 4 eyes remained fixed on the tactical display as new contacts appeared with alarming frequency. 500, 600, 700 ships. The count continued climbing relentlessly. Near Mars, a massive dreadnought emerged from what had appeared to be a defunct terraforming station. Its hull bore the insignia of the Korean Space Command, with elegant characters painted in silver along its flanks. The vessel was nearly 3 kilometers long, its weapon arrays already powering up with an ominous blue glow. In the outer asteroid belt, another group of ships decloaked simultaneously. These bore the markings of the European Space Consortium, their hulls painted in deep blue with gold trim. Unlike the Crimson Empire's brutal, angular designs, these human vessels had smooth, organic curves that somehow made them appear even more threatening. 800, 900, 1,000 vessels, the automated counting system announced in its cold, mechanical voice. The insectoid Krillians began chittering nervously, their compound eyes reflecting the growing light. Show on the display. Several of their representatives had already begun backing toward the chamber's exits, their 6 legs carrying them with increasing urgency. The gaseous Netherians flickered between rapidly changing colors, their forms becoming increasingly unstable as their emotional state deteriorated. One of them had turned a deep purple, that their species associated with absolute terror, while another had begun emitting distress pheromones that made the chamber's air recycling systems work overtime. Even the mighty Vorthak warriors, whose stone-like skin had weathered countless battles, shifted uncomfortably in their reinforced seats. Their massive hands gripped their ceremonial weapons tighter as they watched humanity's true power unfold before them. 1,200 contacts and rising, the system continued its relentless count. Admiral Park Sujin stood calmly at her podium, her expression never changing as she watched the Empress's growing panic. "Your Highness seems surprised by our response," she said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber's amplification system. "Perhaps your intelligence networks were not as thorough as you believed." Near Jupiter's moons, an entire battle group emerged from what had been catalogued as a research facility, studying the gas giant's atmospheric composition. The lead ship bore the flag of the Japanese Space Defense Force, its hull decorated with the rising sun symbol that had been modified for space warfare. Accompanying it were vessels from the Australian Space Navy, their hulls painted in desert camouflage patterns that had somehow been adapted for the void of space. 1,500 ships, Velthara breathed, her voice barely audible. Her clawed hands had begun to tremble as she gripped the arms of her throne. "This cannot be real. Our spies have monitored Earth for decades. You are a primitive species with limited industrial capacity." Kim Minho stepped forward from his position beside the Admiral. "Your spies saw exactly what we intended them to see, Your Highness. While your empire focused on conquest and expansion, humanity spent generations perfecting the art of preparation and misdirection." The display showed vessels emerging from every corner of the solar system. Hidden shipyards that had been disguised as asteroid mining operations revealed themselves as massive construction facilities. What had appeared to be routine cargo haulers suddenly unfolded into sleek destroyers and cruisers. 1,600, 1,700, 1,800 vessels, the automated system droned on. The human ships represented a united Earth in a way that no alien species had ever achieved. Vessels bearing the symbols of the Indian Space Research Organization floated alongside ships from the Brazilian Space Command. The Russian Aerospace Force's distinctive red stars were visible on hulls that dwarfed anything in the Crimson Fleet, while ships from the African Space Coalition displayed the continent's colors with pride. Each vessel was unique in design, reflecting the culture and engineering philosophy of its creators, yet they all shared common elements that marked them as products of human ingenuity. Their weapon systems were unlike anything in any galactic database. Their hull materials seemed to absorb sensor scans rather than reflect them, and their engines produced energy signatures that defied conventional physics. 1,800 ships, whispered the Aquatic Mollusk Confederation's representative, its translation device struggling to process the emotional content of its speech. "How is this possible? The industrial capacity required, the resources, the time." Admiral Park's voice remained steady and calm. "For generations, humanity has learned one crucial lesson that your species apparently never mastered. Never reveal your true strength until the moment demands it. While you conquered openly, we built in secret. While you celebrated your victories, we prepared for war." The chamber's ventilation system struggled to keep up with the stress pheromones, and fear chemicals being released by dozens of different alien species. The silicon-based rocklings had begun emitting high-frequency vibrations that made their crystalline forms ring like bells, while the methane breathers had started leaking their atmospheric mixture, despite their environmental suits. As the count approached 2,000 ships, a new voice crackled through the chamber's communication system. It was clear, professional, and carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in actual combat. "Admiral Park, this is Captain Lee Jinwoo aboard the battleship Incheon. All vessels report ready for combat operations. Weapon systems are online, targeting solutions are locked, and all units are standing by for orders." The transmission was followed by a chorus of similar reports from other human commanders. Captain Kim Do-hyun from the carrier Busan reported his fighter squadrons ready for launch. Commander Yoon Sora from the destroyer Gwangju confirmed her. Missile batteries were armed and tracking targets. Captain Choi Min-soo from the dreadnought Seoul announced that his main guns were charged and ready to fire. Empress Velthara's serpentine form had begun to shake visibly as the full scope of humanity's deception became clear. Her forearms clutched at her throne as if it were the only thing anchoring her to reality. The tactical display now showed nearly 2,000 human warships, each one targeting a different vessel in her supposedly invincible fleet. "This changes nothing," she hissed, though her voice lacked its earlier confidence. "The Crimson Empire has faced larger fleets before. We have conquered species with superior technology. We will not be intimidated by primitive mammals playing with starships. But even as she spoke, her reptilian eyes remained fixed on the display, watching as the human fleet count continued its inexorable climb toward an impossible number. The holographic display reached a number that seemed to break the very foundation of galactic military doctrine. 3,000 human warships hung in perfect formation throughout the solar system, their combined firepower representing more destructive capability than most species possessed in their entire fleets. 2,998, 2,999. The automated counting system's mechanical voice seemed to echo through the chamber like a funeral bell. 3,000 vessels confirmed. All contacts. Show active weapon signatures and targeting solutions. Empress Velthara's serpentine form convulsed, as if she had been struck by lightning. Her forearms flailed wildly, knocking several ceremonial items from her throne's armrests. The proud ruler, who had conquered dozens of star systems, was now staring at a tactical display that showed her supposedly invincible fleet outnumbered 6-1. "This is impossible," she shrieked, her voice cracking like breaking crystal. "Fucker." Sound echoed through the chamber with such intensity that several alien representatives covered their auditory organs in pain. "A primitive species cannot possess such power. This violates every law of galactic development." Her reptilian eyes darted frantically between different sections of the display, as if searching for some sign that this was an elaborate illusion. The Crimson Empire's 500 dreadnoughts, which had seemed so overwhelming just minutes ago, now appeared pathetically small compared to the human armada surrounding them. The human ships were not randomly scattered across space. Each vessel had positioned itself with mathematical precision, creating overlapping fields of fire that would turn any Crimson ship trying to escape into a brief flash of superheated plasma. The targeting solutions were so precise that some human vessels were tracking individual weapon ports on the alien ships. From the flagship's communication array, a calm female voice cut through the Empress's hysteria. "Admiral Park, this is Lieutenant. Commander Yunhain aboard the command ship Sejong. All vessels report green across the board. Weapon systems are fully charged, targeting computers have locked onto assigned targets, and all fleet elements are standing by for combat orders." The transmission was followed by status reports from other human commanders throughout the solar system. Each report was delivered with the same professional calm, as if commanding a 3,000-ship fleet was routine for humanity. "Task Force Alpha reports ready from the asteroid belt position," came another voice. "Task Force Beta confirms targeting solutions from Jupiter orbit. Task Force Gamma has established firing positions near Saturn's rings." Admiral Park Sujin stood at her podium with the same composed expression she had worn throughout the entire confrontation. Her uniform remained perfectly pressed, her hands steady as she clasped them behind her back. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had planned for this exact moment for decades. "Your Highness appears distressed," she observed with clinical detachment. "Perhaps you would like to reconsider your earlier demands." Velthara's head snapped toward the human delegation, her serpentine neck extending to its full length. "My intelligence networks are the finest in the galaxy. They have monitored every major shipyard, every industrial facility, every mining operation in your system. Where did these ships come from?" Kim Minho stepped forward, his diplomatic composure never wavering despite the chaos surrounding them. "Your intelligence networks saw exactly what we wanted them to see, Your Highness. Every mining station they monitored was indeed mining asteroids, but they failed to notice that we were also mining out hollow spaces to build shipyards inside. Every cargo hauler they tracked was indeed carrying legitimate trade goods, but they didn't realize the cargo holds could be converted into weapon bays within hours." The ambassador gestured toward the tactical display, where human vessels continued to emerge from their concealment. While other species focused on territorial expansion and public displays of power, humanity learned a different lesson from our history. We learned that survival often depends on letting your enemies underestimate you until the moment you choose to reveal your true strength. The alien representatives throughout the chamber were experiencing various forms of shock and panic. The Insectoid krillians had begun secreting stress pheromones that made their carapaces shine with an oily sheen. The gaseous Netherians were flickering so rapidly between colors that they appeared to be strobing. Several of the silicon-based rocklings had actually cracked under the emotional pressure, their crystalline forms developing visible fractures. Even the proud Vorthak warriors, whose species had never retreated from any battle in their recorded history, were edging toward the chamber's emergency exits. Their stone-like faces showed expressions of disbelief that their species had not worn for over 1,000 years. Empress Velthara's rage reached a crescendo that made the chamber's structural supports vibrate. "This changes nothing," she screamed, though her voice carried a note of desperation that everyone present could detect. "The Crimson Empire spans hundreds of systems. I will call for reinforcements. I will summon the entire Imperial Navy to crush your pathetic world." Her clawed hands frantically worked the controls of her communication array, sending priority signals toward the edge of the solar system, where her faster-than-light relay stations waited to carry messages back to Crimson Empire territory. Admiral Park's smile was colder than the void between galaxies. "Your reinforcement fleet, Your Highness, the one that was supposed to arrive from the Vega sector 3 days ago." The Empress froze, her serpentine form going rigid with sudden fear. "They're currently being escorted away from this system by our deep space defense grid," Park continued with the same clinical calm. "Your Admiral Kethmaran was quite cooperative once he realized that his 50 dreadnoughts were surrounded by twice that number of human vessels that had been waiting in the outer darkness for weeks." The tactical display shifted to show the edge of the solar system, where another group of human ships was indeed shepherding a Crimson Empire fleet away from Earth. The alien reinforcements were moving in perfect formation, but it was clearly not their own formation. They were being herded like livestock by human vessels that appeared and disappeared from sensors at will. "Your deep space monitoring stations." Park's smile grew even colder. "We've been feeding them false information for months. Every message they sent to your empire, every tactical report, every intelligence update, all carefully crafted to show exactly what we wanted your leaders to believe." Velthara's forearms trembled as the full scope of humanity's deception became clear. For the first time in her 1,000-year reign, the Empress of the Crimson Empire was experiencing something she had never felt before. Complete and utter defeat at the hands of a species she had dismissed as primitives. The chamber fell silent, except for the steady hum of life support systems and the distant vibration of 3,000 human warships maintaining their targeting. Locks on what remained of Crimson Empire's once mighty fleet. The massive chamber of the Galactic Council had fallen into an eerie silence, broken only by the labored breathing of Empress Velthara. Her serpentine form had collapsed back into her throne, her forearms hanging limply at her sides, as the full weight of humanity's revelation crushed her 1,000-year reign of terror. The proud conqueror who had brought entire star systems to their knees was now staring at a tactical display that showed her complete and utter defeat. The holographic projection continued to update in real time, showing 3,000 human warships maintaining their perfect formation throughout the solar system. Each vessel's targeting computer had locked onto multiple Crimson Empire ships, creating a web of destruction that could be activated with a single command. The mathematical precision was terrifying in its implications. A new voice crackled through the chamber's communication array, crisp and professional despite the tension filling the air. "Attention Crimson Empire vessels, this is Commander Cho Minji of the Earth Defense Force battleship Daegu. You have 30 minutes to begin orderly withdrawal from this system. Failure to comply will result in your presence being classified as an act of war against humanity." The ultimatum was delivered with the same calm efficiency that had characterized every human communication throughout the encounter. There was no anger, no gloating, no unnecessary threats, just the cold statement of facts that made the message even more chilling. Velthara's reptilian eyes darted around the chamber as she sought support from her former allies, but the other alien representatives were already beginning to distance themselves from the Crimson Empire's position. The insectoid krillians had moved their delegation to the far side of the chamber, their compound eyes avoiding any contact with the Empress. The gaseous Netherians had dimmed their bioluminescent displays to barely visible levels, trying to make themselves as inconspicuous as possible. Even the mighty Vorthak warriors, whose species had served as enforcers for the Crimson Empire for centuries, were quietly removing their ceremonial weapons and placing them on the floor in gestures of neutrality. Their stone-like faces showed no emotion, but their actions spoke volumes about their assessment of the situation. The Aquatic Mollusk Confederation's representative was already transmitting withdrawal orders to their home system, while the silicon-based rocklings had begun harmonizing in frequencies that their species associated with mourning and loss. The methane-breathing Zephyrians were venting their atmospheric suits in patterns that indicated submission and retreat. Kim Minho stepped forward to address the council one final time. His diplomatic uniform remained as pristine as when he had first entered the chamber, despite the chaos that had unfolded around him. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone representing not just a planet, but a species that had just redefined the balance of power in the galaxy. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council," he began, his words carrying clearly through the chamber's amplification system. "Today marks the end of an era. The protection tax system that has drained the resources of dozens of worlds while enriching a single empire is hereby dissolved. No species should be forced to pay tribute for the basic right to exist in peace." The human ambassador's gaze swept across the assembled aliens, many of whom were still processing the complete reversal of fortune they had witnessed. "Humanity seeks peace among all species, but we have learned from our own history that sometimes peace can only be maintained through strength. We will not be aggressors, but neither will we allow aggression to go unanswered." On the tactical display, the Crimson Empire's fleet had begun to move. The mighty dreadnoughts that had struck fear into the hearts of countless worlds were now turning away from Earth in a formation that could only be described as retreat. Their weapon systems were powering down, their targeting computers disengaging, their proud crimson hulls catching the light of Sol as they prepared to limp back to their home territory. Admiral Park Sujin's communication device began receiving incoming transmissions from across the galaxy. The first was from the Andromedan Trade Federation, requesting immediate diplomatic contact with Earth. The second came from the Outer Rim Mining Collective, asking about mutual defense agreements. Within minutes, her device was overwhelmed with similar requests from species that had remained neutral during the Crimson Empire's expansion. "Admiral Park," came the voice of her communications officer, "we're receiving over 200 requests for diplomatic contact. The Spiral Nebula Alliance wants to discuss technology sharing agreements. The Crystal Worlds Consortium is asking about joint exploration missions. Even the nomadic fleet clans are requesting permission to establish trading posts in our system." The power shift was immediate and undeniable. Species that had cowered before the Crimson Empire for generations were now seeking the protection and partnership of humanity. The galaxy's political landscape had been completely rewritten in the span of a single confrontation. From the flagship Sejong, Captain Li Jinwu's voice echoed through the chamber one final time. His transmission was picked up by every communication array in the council station, ensuring that his words would be recorded and transmitted across the galaxy. To all species listening to this transmission, remember this day. Remember that strength does not always announce itself with fanfare and spectacle. Sometimes the greatest predator is the one that remains hidden in the darkness until the moment when the hunt begins. Humanity has emerged from the shadows not to conquer, but to ensure that no species will ever again be forced to kneel before tyrants. The human delegation began to gather their materials, preparing to depart from the station. As they moved toward the exit, alien representatives approached them with urgent requests and offers of alliance. The Krillians offered their advanced biotechnology. The Netherians promised to share their knowledge of energy manipulation, and even some of the Vorthak warriors stepped forward to offer their services as security contractors. Admiral Park paused at the chamber's entrance and turned back toward the assembled council. The Earth Defense Force will be establishing diplomatic offices on 17 different worlds within the next standard month. Any species interested in peaceful cooperation will find us willing partners. Any species that chooses to follow the Crimson Empire's path of conquest and extortion will find us equally willing to defend the innocent. As the human delegation departed, the chamber remained in stunned silence. The tactical display still showed 3,000 human warships maintaining their positions, a constant reminder that the galaxy's balance of power had shifted permanently. The Crimson Empire's era of dominance was over, and a new chapter in galactic history had begun. Empress Velthara remained slumped in her throne, her serpentine form trembling as she watched her once mighty fleet disappear into the darkness between stars. The conqueror who had ruled through fear and intimidation had learned that there were forces in the universe even more dangerous than her own empire. And those forces had been hiding in plain sight, waiting patiently for the right moment to reveal themselves. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The end.